The 2023 NFL Draft is less than 10 days away, and the New York Jets still haven't secured Aaron Rodgers via trade. What will it take to land him, and what can we expect for the Jets in the draft? Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic joins us to talk it over. Okay, and welcome to Draft Brothers podcast for all things 2023 NFL Draft. In this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at what the Jets could do with their picks, who they might be targeting, and how this could involve quarterback and future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers. I am your host, Jeff Hasley, and I'm joined by my draft brother, Dan Turner. And our guest today is Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic. And Zach's going to help us shed some light on the Jets' plans for the 2023 NFL Draft and help us understand what might go down with their picks and how it might tie into a trade for Aaron Rodgers. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. All right. So, Zach, the big question in the room, what are you hearing about Aaron Rodgers? What have you heard about the picks that it could take to acquire him? I assume something's either going to happen before the draft, during the draft, maybe after the draft. What can you shed some light on here?
There's nothing really new has happened lately, honestly. It's kind of been stagnant. I think they're playing a little game of chicken right now to see who will give in to the other's demands. For a while I thought that the draft for sure would be the deadline, but as it gets closer and there just has been no progress, I could see it going after the draft, honestly. So unfortunately, I don't have much of an update for you guys, but that's because the Jets or Packers don't really have updates they're giving out. But yeah, I would say, I don't think the Packers are looking for the Jets first this year. I think they want their first next year. And I think the Jets want some protections in case Aaron doesn't play next year also. So there's like some back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And, Aaron not making it clear whether he wants to play more than a year is a factor in all this for sure. He's going to be a Jet. It's just a matter of when.
Well, that's, I'm sure Jets fans are happy to hear that, but then everyone just is wanting to know, well, what and when, and what do we make of these picks, that kind of thing.
Right. Hey, Zach. So how healthy will Breece Hall be when the season starts? And if he isn't healthy, can Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter kind of pick up the load until he is healthy?
I think that I get the sense they're confident they can at least get him back, if not for right away in the beginning of the season, then pretty early. I think a lot of it will depend on his readiness for training camp. But if you look at the recent history of guys who tore their ACL, I think it's pretty rare that first year back that they're going to be themselves right away. I mean, I always point to Saquon Barkley as the obvious one. He's pretty bad the first year after his ACL, and then he went off the year after that. So, even if Breece is back in week one, I don't think you'll see him at his full explosiveness until later in the year at the earliest, I would say. And in terms of the backups, they like Zonovan Knight, they like Michael Carter, they like Ty Johnson, who they also resigned. But I think they saw last year, and then none of those guys can really carry the load when they have to. So I've been saying all offseason, I think they need to add another running back. A name I had heard was Dontrell Hilliard from the Titans is a guy I think makes a lot of sense for them because Todd Downing's on their staff, Keith Carter's on their staff. He hurt his neck, I believe, late in the year, and I think a lot of teams are waiting for him to get cleared. And then, in the draft or undrafted rookies or whatever, you can always find value at running back later in the draft. So I would keep an eye on that. They don't have a lot of picks, especially if they give up some with the Packers. Maybe they trade back. But if there's a running back sitting there in the 5th round or something like that they think can contribute right away, I think they do it.
All right. We are talking Jets draft with Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic, and you can reach him on Twitter at Zach Blatt, that's ZackBlatt. And we're talking Jets draft. So, Zach, would you say there's a particular position group that needs to be addressed the most here in the draft? What's the biggest weakness that can be addressed here?
Offensive tackle will be the one I would point to at the top of the list. The Jets don't believe their offensive line was as bad as it looked last year. They were really snake bitten by injuries. I think in total they got like 6 different offensive tackles that were considered starters go on injured reserve, and it's hard to survive that. So I think they can bounce back from it. But Dwayne Brown is returning. He's going to be 38 this year, coming off shoulder surgery. They have Mekhi Becton, who's played one game in the last 2 years, and they have Max Mitchell, who missed the end of last season with a blood clotting issue. So they have no like surefire, this guy's going to be a starter in 2024 guys. And all of those guys have questions going into this year. So I think if they're sitting there at 13 and one of those top tackles are there, I think they take one of them is what I would say.
Do you have a specific top tackle that you would like to see them take? Is there a guy that you're like, oh, I hope if he's there at 13, he's the guy I want them to take?
I don't know about want or hope, but I think the Paris Johnson's probably the best out of the three in terms of he can be their long-term solution at left tackle, and Peter Skoronski is very intriguing in his ability to both play guard and tackle and equally well. And then Broderick Jones is probably more of a project of the three just because he hasn't played as much, but he's very talented, and I think he'd be a guy you can develop into a long-term guy. So I think any of those three guys they'd be happy with.
If you like sports and playing sporting games, download the Champions Round app. Get playing and start winning. Use promo code DraftBros for a free $10 and check out our newest game mode, Spicy Slips. If you love live sports gaming, the NBA, or Major League Baseball, and you want some extra action this NFL offseason, come play Spicy Slips. Build a 2 to 5 leg parlay of live props and win big today.
All right, so the wide receiver room has got a lot of people this offseason. Shipped away Elijah Moore, signed Mecole Hardman, signed Allen Lazard. After Garrett Wilson, how do you see the wide receiver room kind of shaking out this year?
Yeah, that I think they run pretty hard after Odell Beckham. I think they thought they were going to get him, and if they had gotten him, I think they would have cut Corey Davis pretty quickly after that. But because they didn't get Odell, I think there's a chance to keep Corey, even though they just signed Allen Lazard, who I think is a little bit better version of Corey Davis, kind of a big-bodied guy, good run blocker, can make some plays down the field. So as it stands right now, I think their foursome will be Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, Mecole Hardman, who they really like as a kind of a gadget, a souped-up version of what they had in Barrios the last couple of years in a way, because he's a lot more athletic. And then you have Corey Davis. And it's a solid foursome of receivers, but ultimately it's Garrett Wilson and everybody else.
That actually, if I could build on your question here, Dan, I'm actually kind of curious what you think of Garrett Wilson in terms of where he belongs in the pantheon of wide receivers that are emerging right now. Do you see him as someone who could be like a 100 catch guy? Is he someone who can get 10 touchdowns? Where do you fit in with Wilson here?
I mean, I think he absolutely fits into that. I think he can be one of, if not, one of the 5 to 10 best receivers in the league if everything's going well. He has that level of talent. I mean, look at his numbers last year: 80 catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did all of that with, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, Chris Streveler at quarterback. He was really frustrated a lot of times. He'd be open a lot, and the quarterbacks wouldn't see him. And he did it all a lot faster than I thought he would. I thought he was going to take a little more development because in training camp, kind of saw he was dropping a lot of balls. He needed to develop a little as a route runner. But what I underestimated was I saw his athleticism in camp. But then you see it in games, and his athleticism gets him open in a way that I haven't really seen many guys do. He's able to juke guys out of their cleats because he's so quick and agile. And I think he's only listed at like 6'1" or 6'2". He plays much bigger than that because of his athleticism. So I think the sky is really the limit for that kid. He's really smart. And I think he's going to, if with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, I don't see any way he doesn't go off this year.
Jets fans have got to be thinking, hey, we got the next Devontae Adams here with Wilson. So all the power to them. We're now at the point in our show, our section, which is called One Quick Question. And I want to change this up a little bit based on what I already asked you about Garrett Wilson. I was going to ask about him, but he seemed like a good person to talk about after you mentioned the receivers. So my question is, and this is just a yes or no answer here, and I'll ask you, Zach, as well as Dan, and then I'll answer it myself. Will Corey Davis be on the team week 1? I'll start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I'll say yes.
Ooh, okay. Dan, what do you think?
No.
I say no too. I think that, I mean, they're you already mentioned who they've brought in, right? So, I mean, there's not really much room for him. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. We have. The Jets have got 10 picks in this draft. Do you see them kind of consolidating, moving up? Is there a particular sweet spot in the draft that you think they might need to be available for, that they can move up and get a guy? Just kind of curious your thoughts here.
I wouldn't rule it out. I think Joe Douglas has shown he's willing to trade up if there's a guy that they want to go get. He's done it multiple times in the first round, in the second round, traded up to get Breece Hall, traded up to get AVT. So I absolutely think if there's a guy, especially because they're in win now mode, they're in we want to win a Super Bowl this year mode. If somebody's falling that they really, really like, whether that's a Jalen Carter, I doubt Will Anderson will fall, but like a guy like that, if they're scared of, let's say they think Paris Johnson is a head and shoulders above the other two guys, and it's getting closer to the number 10 spot or something, and they're getting a little worried, I could see that. But yeah, so I would definitely not rule it out. I'd be surprised maybe, but I would not rule out them trading up for sure.
In the event that you guys don't get Aaron Rodgers, what's the plan then at quarterback?
I don't really think that there
is there a plan.
That's a non-issue, I guess. Apparently,
yeah. I don't think they view it as an issue. I don't think either side, both sides intend on doing this trade. They're, like I said, they're playing a game of chicken. There's been some reports or rumors about other teams coming in. I don't think that's true. It's the Packers, it's the Jets. It's a very unique situation. I don't think there's ever been a trade thing like this where it's so public. But it's going to happen, whether it's now, whether Brett Favre got traded the Jets in August on the day of a preseason game. Maybe they hold out that long. I don't know. If it doesn't happen during the draft, it won't happen until after June 1st, just because of the finances. And the Packers can save more money by that. And there's not really anything, between there's OTAs and stuff, but there's not really anything between the draft and June 1st that would, force either team to rush it. So if it doesn't happen in the draft, it'll happen after June 1st. When, I don't know. For my sake, I hope it happens. I'm tired of, every time my phone vibrates, wondering what it just went through. But yeah, so hopefully sooner than later. And I think, they have the entire NFL is watching. It's all, if you turn on any of the sports shows or the national podcasts or anything like that, they're talking about it every week, every day. So it hopefully it wraps up soon, but I can't get a read on when that might be.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Zach. We appreciate you sharing your expertise and insights on the Jets and their draft plans. Be sure to follow Zach, his Twitter handle @ZachBlatt. And we appreciate your support. Please do us a favor. If you like the show, consider subscribing and leave us a comment. We appreciate that. That stuff really does help out our channel. And download the Champions Round app and use the free $10 bonus code. And make sure to check out our separate video on the Jets mock draft that we're going to do here with Zach. And if you've watched that, watch our other videos too. So if you're not a Jets fan, if you're a fan of another team, chances are we already have a video done. We got a mock draft with it. So enjoy that. Your entertainment is our passion. We'll see you next time when we talk about the Giants draft.